Okay, chapter 8 of the Holy Man. Chapter 8, Grieving Man. I have lost my wife, he told Joe when Joe invited him to sit down. She has been taken from me. She is gone. I loved her so much. Now I will never see her again. Did she die? Yes, that is what I am saying. She is gone. Well, she could have left. That would have been worse. Then you would still never see her again, but have to suffer the added pain of rejection. But this is very sad. I am sorry that you had to give her back before she gave you back. I beg your pardon? Give her back? Yes, you are adding to your grief by being such a victim. If you say to yourself that you have given her back, you will feel better, because you see she was never yours. Nothing that you have is yours. It never was yours. But that's crazy. My possessions are mine, my children are mine, and my wife. No, they are not yours. Only you are yours. Not your possessions, not your children, not your wife. You will have to give them all back. You do not get to keep any of them. Chapter 9, Famous Man. There was a man famous throughout the world who particularly wanted to see the Holy Man. He told his point man, his personal assistant in charge of public appearances, to make all the arrangements for the visit. However, the point man was unable to contact any of the Holy Man's people. There was no phone or fax at the hermitage. The only mailing address was a box number in the town. Go to the town and with the box number and work from there, said the famous man. The point man arrived in the town below the hermitage and discovered that the road per se ended there, becoming, at the outskirts of the town, a path called the Hermitage Trail, which purported to lead in due course to the Holy Man. None of the Holy Man's people resided in the town, so there was no one with whom he could make arrangements for his boss's audience with him. He called home. Look, said the famous man, what do I pay you for? Go to the Holy Man's place yourself and make an appointment for him to see me on a certain day, and I'll try to be there, although, if at all possible, I prefer for him to come see me. But, sir, it's apparently 10 miles up and 10 miles down again. It's what they call a path, a mountain path. Do it. The point man took the path. He hadn't walked farther than a city block in years. It was hard going. After a mile, he shed his coat and tie. After another mile, he loosened his shoes and his belt and rolled up his sleeves. After the third mile, he sat down and tried not to cry. His entire body was trembling. I'll never make it, he thought. This is what I get paid for, he reminded himself. He massaged his poor muscles, counted his woes, then steeled himself and got to his feet. At this point, the path traveled alongside a fence which surrounded a pasture within which were about 30 dappled ponies. Some men were sitting on the fence, keenly observing the beasts. The point man approached them, and after such shouting, gesticulating, and waving of greenbacks, persuaded them to rent him a pony. A pony was what he got for his money, but no saddle or bridle went with her. Still, the pony seemed to know her job and trotted ebulliently up the trail, seeming to favor, even savor, the uphill, which, in fact, was what she was bred for. The point man jiggled and jounced and hung on to the thick mane and tried to keep his seat as well as keep his feet from dragging on the ground, finally figuring that a sort of lying-down arrangement on the pony's back, with his arms around the pony's neck, was the way to go, as long as no one was looking. A walk or a canter would have been much more comfortable, but what did he know about gaits? Sometimes, for no reason he could see except that the trail allowed for it, the pony would lapse from her steady trot and go into a little sidestep-backstep dance that even included the odd pirouette and complete whirl. It was not as if the pony was trying to dislodge him, for she seemed completely cheerful about her burden. It was late in the day when he attained the end of the line. Of course, it was not the end of the line as he knew it, when it meant one's final destination. What's this, he wondered. It was evidently a large gathering of people strung out lengthwise. He dismounted. His legs crumbled beneath him, but he recovered his footing. Even standing still, the jiggling motion did not entirely cease. He hoped the experience had not damaged his inner ear. Excuse me, he said, stepping on by. I have to go on ahead to make arrangements with the Holy Man to see. And, full of importance, he spoke the name of his boss, which was familiar to everyone within hearing. Oh, no, you don't. You get right here at the end of the line and wait your turn like the rest of us. The woman who spoke was similar to the woman who confronted the drunk. It seemed that she, or someone very like her, was always near the end, keeping order, telling newcomers what was what, sternly laying down the law of the line. Maybe she was one of the holy man's people placed there for that purpose, a monk in pilgrim's clothing. More likely, she was simply clothed in the robes of justice, and also one who liked to be a bit bossy. Not a necessary evil, but a necessary good. Haven't you heard of? And he again uttered the famous name. Yes, sure I have, and I'm impressed, truly, but the holy man doesn't care who he is. That doesn't mean a thing to him. It might. Let me just go ahead and talk to him and see what I can arrange. I'll be willing to pay you and anyone else to let me by. You can name your price. The woman laughed. Do you think this line is about money? What's your problem? Right now, my problem is you. Suppose I do decide to let you buy for $1,000, and so does the next person, and the next person. You've got maybe 1,000 souls here. Did you say 1,000? He craned his neck. Right, so that's 1,000 thousands. Help me on my math. I think it's 1,000,000. Is your boss ready to pay that? One thing was for sure. The point man wasn't going all the way back to town to call his boss to find out, so he said, yes. Well, money isn't important to us. She looked pityingly upon him. That's not why we're here. It was one thing to pity himself, as he had been doing all day, but quite another to be pitied by this end-of-the-liner. Why are you here, then? He asked. To find out how to live a meaningful life. Baby, with money you can afford all the meaning you want. Is money going to give you courage, wisdom, compassion? Fast cars, women, beautiful horses, respect. Those are what are known in the trade as unnatural and unlimited desires. They never satisfy. They do not bring happiness. You know what they bring? What? Despair. Try me, he grinned. She fell silent. He goaded her. If you already know so much about what it takes, courage, wisdom, and whatever, love, I guess you said, then why bother to come all this way to the holy man? To see what it looks like when it's embodied, she said, her voice trembling a little at the wonder of it, to see that it's humanly possible. When the line broke for the day and people marked their spots and drifted off to be by themselves or to mingle with friends or to set up camp, the point man talked to as many of them as he could and pretty much got the same message, which was, no. Then he saw a woman in a wheat-colored robe with a pack on her back, tripping lightly up the path. Hey, what about her? How come she gets to go her merry way up to see the holy man? Because she lives at the hermitage. She's one of the monks. The next day, back in the town, he called his boss and told him what the deal was, described how bleak the situation, how stubborn and incorruptible the people of the line. Then he told him about the monks. Every few days, one of them goes down the mountain to get stuff, fresh fruit and vegetables. There aren't that many of them, maybe 8. They take turns. Get one of the monks to take a message to the holy man, and I want to see him. I already tried to. She wouldn't do it. She says you have to come here and get in line like everyone else, but that probably at this time of year you won't make it to the top. She says to come in the late spring, and then you'll be at the front of the line. She was nice about it. I want to see the holy man now, not next spring, not next Sunday, now. Get hold of one of the monk's robes, and I'll go tripping the hell up the mountain myself. When the holy man sees that it's me, he'll understand. He'll forgive me. That's what he's all about, isn't it? Understanding? Forgiveness? He laughed. Yes, and he's also about courage, wisdom, and compassion, the point man said. What the hell are you talking about? What do you know? Just do your job and get the robe. I'm on my way. He's about humility, the point man said, quoting some of the other things the pilgrims had told him. Harmony, reason, truth. But the famous man had already hung up. Chapter 10. Violence. The point man nabbed the next monk who came to town, which was 4 days later. Getting a steely grip on his arm, he led him unprotestingly to his room at the inn. His boss had already arrived and was ensconced in a separate suite. The point man telephoned him. I got a monk, he said. Be right there. The famous man came in. I'm sorry about this, he said. I've got to borrow your robe to see the holy man. I promise you he'll understand when he sees who I am. Who are you? He told the point man to tell the monk who he was. Maybe your friend should steal a robe too, the monk said, so as to be with you when you arrive and tell the holy man who you are when he asks. Don't be a wise guy, the point man said reprovingly. Take off your robe. Strip. Let's get this over with. He was sweating and uncomfortable. He didn't like this one bit. The monk did not take off his wheat-colored robe. Get the robe, the famous man said, quickly shedding his own clothes down to his underwear. The point man stepped forward but could go no farther. He simply was not going to undress the monk. To his own astonishment, he discovered there was a line he wouldn't cross, and this was it. He wouldn't do it, not for any amount of money. He told this to the famous man, who said, Then you're fired. I don't care. The point man sat down in a chair and mopped his brow while the famous man said, "Come on, old fella, let's get this over with." He stepped forward, leaned down, grabbed the hem, and started pulling the robe up over the monk's body, but the monk would not obligingly raise his arms. So the famous man grit his teeth, raised his hand, and struck him down. The famous man was able to free the robes from the body of the half-conscious monk. He pulled on the clean, soft cotton robe, which came to a little below his knees. "I'm sorry, but I just had to see the holy man," he told the fallen monk, who lay still, blood dripping from his nose. The man on the floor decided that this was one time when he wouldn't say to the pilgrim, "You have already seen me." The walk would be good for the famous man, Joe thought fuzzily. The reception he'd get at the hermitage would be very good for him, and the return walk down the mountain in his jockey shorts would be the best. The monks would see that he went down the way he had come, past the people waiting in line. That would make a better man of him, and he would be more famous than ever, 1,000 times more famous. Of course, he thought more fuzzily, the sad likelihood is that I will have to go up the mountain in my underpants. Still, I shall have the privacy of the backside, the unpilgrimed trail. When the famous man left, the point man raised the small monk from the floor and set him gently on the bed. He washed the blood from his face and stayed by the bed, watching over him. He resolved to carry the monk, if need be, back to the monastery or whatever it was called. Yes, he who could barely make it halfway up on his own 2 feet would carry the man, would crawl on his hands and knees, and let him ride on his back if necessary to bring him safely home. The point man knelt by the bed with his hands clasped, his head bowed, face washed by continuously running tears, feeling unutterable remorse for having participated in such a loathsome deed as battering this poor, small, old monk who hadn't looked so old or small while standing there refusing to relinquish his robe, but was now revealed to be very old and small indeed. Joe couldn't tell him to get up off his knees because he had drifted off to a healing sleep. Chapter 11. Kindness. The holy man did not have to go up the hill in his underpants, and the point man did not have to carry him. In an hour he awoke refreshed, said he was feeling just fine, and could he please borrow some clothes. The point man gave him a pair of designer jeans and a red polo shirt. He wanted to give him everything he owned, including all his money, but the monk told him thanks, but all he needed was clothes. "You will want your money. Don't forget, you've lost your job." "I've lost everything, including my self-respect." "Just continue being as kind to people as you have been to me, and you will be a happy man." "Really? Is it that simple?" "Yes. But what do I do exactly?" "You took care of me, a complete stranger. You bathed my wounds and watched over my sleep. You prayed for me. You offered me all that you had." "That's right, I did. That's kindness, eh? I guess you could call it love, too?" He ventured. "Compassion?" "Yes." "Courage?" "You showed courage standing up to your boss, risking all." The point man was brightening by the minute, but then he said sorrowfully, "I should have protected you from him. I should never have let this horrible thing happen in the first place. It was my fault, but I think some good has come of it. I wish you well. Goodbye." Years later, both living good lives in utter obscurity, the ex-point man would encounter his ex-boss and learn from him that the little monk was the holy man. "He wore my clothes," he would tell his ex-boss, thrilled. "I wore his clothes," was the abashed but equally thrilled reply. He added, "Nothing ever felt so soft or smelled so sweet."